what is it that Israel is so scared of that they have to take such measures as to kill journalists? Israel is a country that is quite literally led by a man wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. If that is a credible source, then I think you need to re-examine your sources. One day, I hope every single person that failed, every single world leader that failed is held to account.
Humza, I wanted to start with the assassination of Anas al-Sharif, who was killed, around 48 hours ago by the IDF. How have you received that news?
Well, I have to say I'm really devastated by the news. I saw it just as it was being posted online. I'm somebody who's watched Anas's reporting over the last 22 months in particular. And I have to salute every journalist in Gaza that risks their life in order for the truth to be exposed. And of course, we know well over 170 journalists have been assassinated. And I think the question one has to ask ourselves is, what is it that Israel is so scared of being exposed that they have to take such measures as to kill journalists? And I saw a report today, one report that said more journalists have been killed in Gaza than in both world wars, in Vietnam and several other wars put together, combined. So I think it is, I'm afraid, a symbol, a demonstration of the fact that Israel has plenty to hide, and that's why so many of us believe war crimes and a genocide has been committed.
So when the IDF and Israel released statements arguing that al-Sharif was actually part of a Hamas cell, do you think, well, firstly, I wonder if that's something that you would believe. And then secondly, do you think that the public perception is, or do you think the public also believe in that?
I don't believe a single word or syllable that's uttered by the IDF. This is an army that has disgraced itself because of its conduct in this genocide. But also, of course, remember, Israel is a country that is quite literally led by a man wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity. If that is a credible source, then I think you need to re-examine your sources. But also, let's be frank here, that if the reports were true, that somehow if you're an individual who's ever taken a selfie with someone that is questionable, then you are a legitimate target, even though you're a non-combatant. Anas was on our TV screens as a journalist, as we know, for the last 22 months, even before then. Then that is, of course, a complete breach of international law. And I think this excuse from the IDF that everybody they kill is Hamas or associated with Hamas, I don't think there's a single person in the world that really believes that anymore.
You have a rather heartbreaking insight to what is happening on the ground in Gaza. Your wife has many cousins who live on the Strip. Can I ask you, what are you hearing from, can I name her? It's Sally, isn't it? And she has 4 children. What is she reporting back to you at the moment about what is happening on the ground?
There's really just no words left to describe how horrendous, dystopian and hellish the situation is. Because, any of us that, in fact, all of us, frankly, whether you have children or don't have children, understand what it's like when a child is suffering and how helpless you can feel. Well, what on earth must it be like being Sally or being any other mother or father where you cannot feed yourself, let alone feed your children? And so she is exhausted. She is, I think, in the throes of malnutrition from everything that she tells us. Her children are becoming emaciated in her arms. And we, of course, continue to send her money, and sometimes she can get that money and receive it, sometimes she can't, because there's no ATM machines on every corner in Gaza. And when she does receive it, then a bag of flour might cost $100. And that's if she can find the bag of flour. And Nadia's father's cousin, actually a few weeks ago, went out to get a bag of flour and was shot in the stomach and a tank rolled over him. So, this is beyond anything we've ever witnessed, hence why I suspect the Israeli government don't allow foreign journalists access.
Well, and sort of the line, I suppose, by some media commentators here and on the international stage has been that this is hyperbole, these accusations of a mass starvation in Gaza. But you are hearing this directly from on the ground.
So I'm hearing it directly, but if you want to dismiss my testimony and the testimony, most importantly, of Sally, that's fine. But you cannot dismiss the testimony of over 150 aid organisations that have been to virtually every conflict zone in the world. If you want to ignore them, fine. Then what about the United Nations and UNRWA and UNICEF, who have been again in Palestine, in Gaza for decades? Then you dismiss their testimony. And then there is, of course, the very images. And we know what George Orwell said about believing the evidence of your own eyes. Well, our own eyes are showing us the images day in and day out of starvation. So all of the evidence weighs to the fact, points to the fact that there is a deliberate mass starvation of people. And remember, the ICC arrest warrant for Netanyahu, one of the crimes that he's indicted with is using starvation as a weapon of war. And that to me has clearly become undeniable.
I'd like to be very clear that I was not questioning your testimony or the testimony of Sally.
It's not meant
I'm
you.
just putting it on record.
It's meant for those that are questioning. No, it's definitely not meant as you. It's meant as the broader sense of those people that quite dismissed the testimony. There's plenty of testimony. If you want to ignore my testimony because you don't like my politics, or again, people may not believe what I've got to say. That's fine. Don't take my word for it. There are so many other credible sources, as well as I would say my source, Sally's source, there's so many others who are pointing and saying the very same thing, that there is mass starvation taking place.
Calling freelancers, small and mid-sized business owners. Tide's Instant Saver account offers up to 4% AER variable, flexible access and competitive returns.
Unlike other options on the market, you won't need to hold your money with Tide for a fixed period. That means you'll have instant access and free withdrawals whenever you need it.
You can get started today with just £1, making it easy to start growing your business savings.
Want to know what you'll earn? Tide's clever calculator gives you a clear picture up front.
Our audience will receive £100 cash back when you deposit £5,000 within the first 30 days of opening your Tide Instant Saver account.
Use code JOE, that's JOE, JOE. New members receive an annual equivalent rate of up to 4% AER variable, free for 6 months. For the full offer, visit tide.co/Joe. T's and C's apply.
And your politics at this point in time, I mean, when you're talking about Palestine, what do you mean by your politics? Do you mean from what people may remember from when you were First Minister? Because surely when you're talking about Palestine, what you're arguing for is the recognition of the state, and you would also like to see aid going into the country. That's sort of where your politics lie at the moment, is it not?
Yeah, look, it is, but I'm afraid our politics is so toxic, the discourse, that immediately, because some people won't like what I stand for, be it Scottish independence, obviously I'm a politician that's very proudly on the left, sees himself as very progressive. You may not agree with all of that politics, but people will automatically then say, well, whatever he's saying about Gaza must be untrue, or because he's got relatives there, he's clearly a biased source. And I suppose my point is you can accept or you can ignore what I have to say. That's really neither here nor there. But there's so much testimony from credible aid organizations, from credible multilateral institutions, that are all saying the same thing. And they're all saying that there is a mass starvation of almost 2 million people taking place, and that aid has to flow into Gaza. And of course, for the aid distribution model that's there, it's really just designed to kill people. Over 1,000 people have been killed trying to get aid through the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Why do you think that Starmer has been reticent to intervene in the ongoing crisis? I mean, you could argue that we have supplied aid, but there are also, there are many other factors at play. There is suggestion that there have been intelligence flights flying over the Gaza Strip. There's also arms export licenses that continue to be granted to Israel at this time. Why do you think that Starmer has taken this tact? Or actually, let me rephrase that. Is that the correct tack that Starmer should have been taking, or do you think he should have been more interventionist?
Well, I'm afraid it is just a demonstration of the Prime Minister's weakness as a leader. And I'm not asking for him to be a megaphone diplomat. Look, I've been the head of a government, obviously in a different context here in Scotland. I understand the intricacies, the difficulties here around geopolitics, the importance of keeping your allies and relationships good with your allies. That I understand very, very intimately and very well. What I would say to Sir Keir Starmer is there are some issues I think that need global leadership and require global leadership. And I'm not saying you have to do them alone, do them jointly with France, Canada, European partners, our closest neighbour, Ireland, but simply putting out statements of condemnation. It's not feeding the children that are starving in Gaza. And there are concrete actions that could be taken. So there is stopping the complicity. So that is the things you mentioned, stopping selling arms, stopping the reconnaissance flights, and also, by the way, stopping training IDF soldiers. These are all things that can immediately be done. But there's also the proactive steps that could and should be taken, not just the recognition of a Palestinian state, which is long overdue given Britain's historical role, but actually we could be doing more. There could be meaningful sanctions, and not just sanctions on kind of fringe figures or one or two ministers, but actually trade and economic sanctions. Let me just state it clearly. We should be treating Israel the way that apartheid South Africa was treated, because it's only through a kind of policy of isolation will they begin to feel pressure in the same way that South Africa felt the pressure. And Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu has become a rogue nation where they will break international law with impunity until, I'm afraid, they're stopped.
The recognition of a Palestinian state, which was the conditional recognition, was announced by Keir Starmer around 10 days ago now. The reaction to that by some of the commentariat was that this would be a reward to Hamas following the actions of October 7th. I mean, how does that phrasing sit with you? That it would be perceived as, sorry.
I think it's an outrageous slur, because 2 million people in Gaza, the many millions in the West Bank, the vast majority, of course, are not Hamas. They had nothing to do with October the 7th. And yet they have a right to statehood. They have a right for their existence to be recognised. Britain has a particularly important role, given, of course, the British mandate and the Balfour Declaration. We have a particular historic responsibility on the recognition of a Palestinian state. And it's just simply logic. If you believe in a two-state solution, but you only recognise one state, then you're merely paying lip service to that recognition. And look, again, if you want to just go back in history, rewarding statehood via terrorism, well, look, there was many acts of terrorism committed by Zionist militias in the run-up to Israel being founded. Of course, we know the famous incidents like the King David hotel bombing, which killed many British civilians and officials at the time, as well as many Arabs as well. So look, we can go back into history and have that discussion, but I think actually the simpler thing to say is, if you believe in a two-state solution, as I do, then you should absolutely believe in the recognition of the Palestinian state alongside a safe, secure, independent Israel as well.
Do you see it as sort of a jumping through hoops exercise, really, that's being planted by people?
Well, I do. And I mean, the way in which Keir Starmer framed it in particular, I thought was quite unbelievable. The suggestion seemed to be, if you kind of take his logic or follow Keir Starmer's logic, that so long as a genocide is ongoing, and even if you don't believe it's a genocide, we can all agree there are significant atrocities and horrors being committed against the people of Gaza. So if they continue, then we will recognise your statehood. By the way, if they stop, they will actually not recognise your statehood and your existence. It just logically doesn't make any sense to me. So I thought Keir Starmer probably trying to be too smart and failing in that sense. But the recognition, if it happens in September, that's pleasing, but it's not going to stop what's happening right now, which is mass starvation, killings, assassinations, massacres right now. And we need significant sanctions and pressure to stop that from happening today.
Has the international community failed Gaza so far?
Utterly, completely. And one day, I hope every single person that failed, every single world leader that failed, is held to account. I want to see them as part of a tribunal in The Hague, quite frankly. Not just Netanyahu and the Israelis, but anybody that was complicit, those that sold weapons and arms, and we told you those arms were being used to commit such atrocities. And that's, to be honest, what keeps many of us still going. And I know, when I talk to my wife, the only thing that keeps them going is to say that one day we hope and pray that there will be some accountability and that we'll be alive to be able to see that accountability. Because there's no doubting at all, especially when foreign journalists are allowed in, what they will uncover through testimony and through what they see themselves will be of a scale that of human suffering that I don't think we've witnessed in our lifetimes.
Thanks to Tide and their instant savings account for sponsoring this week's podcast.
New members receive an annual equivalent rate of up to 4% AER variable.
Our audience will receive £100 cash back when you deposit £5,000 within the first 30 days of opening your Tide Instant Saver account.
Use code JOE. For the full offer, visit tide.co/Joe. T's and C's apply.